Hi, how you doing?
Pretty good.
Me too, kind of. Only my heart's beating a little faster than yours. All right, my name's Andy. You probably have met me before, but
Yeah.
I considered myself an old friend of Jerry, one of your organizers that passed away not too long ago, and it was actually maybe not too many people know this, but it took 2 to 3 years for him to actually get me to warm up to your organization, and then when he passed away, it felt like I lost the rock that I was actually standing on. And one of my questions to you is, sometimes it's easy to present these ideas to people who are around my age, but when I try to present it to people who are older or so-called elitists, they just throw it away altogether. One, how do I confront these people? And two, what are the main differences and the main characteristics or the things that define classical culture that are different from our culture now?
Yeah. Well, the problem is classical culture is correct. And what's happened is the destruction of classical culture has been an essential part of the destruction of the mental capabilities of the population. Classical culture has a very specific significance. What happens when it becomes merely entertainment without criteria, then the people lose a mooring. The key issue here is always in humanity is what we call creativity. Now, creativity is not variation. It is not innovation. Creativity respects certain principles of the mind, which only really classical cultures can convey. What we've had is people have lost their connection, or never had it, to classical culture. And therefore they go out in life and they find themselves crippled by the lack of classical culture's access. That was to think creatively occurs only in classical culture. Now there's authentic classical cultures, and there are authentic classical cultures. We can trace them all the way back to the classical Greek in particular, which is fairly well known. We have other cases of that, classical culture, and they come in different sizes, so to speak, and different flavors. But they all have certain characteristics, and it's a subject in itself as to what classical culture is. It's one of my specialties, but I don't find everybody is familiar with that specialty. But this classical culture has a very specific, unique role in developing the powers of the human mind. And the lack of development of the human mind in that direction is actually an impediment to progress. It doesn't mean you're bad. It means that you have not acquired this weapon, shall we say, the weapon of progress, the present weapon of mental progress. And we have denied most people in society of familiarity with what this concept is. And therefore they're cut off from something they should have the right to know and the right to experience. If someone was given, say in music, and was given a real systemic education in what musical composition is, they would find it not difficult to begin to understand what it's all about. And they would be able to understand what's wrong with the alternative. Because when you discover that you have powers of your own mind, which you discover you were not using, and now you begin to get acquisition to those powers of the mind that you weren't using, you begin to find that you are much more important than you thought you were. And it's that role of classical culture, which is, shall we say, the beginning entry point of classical culture, when people realize that there's something there which they can't get in any other way, and it means something to them, because they understand themselves better than they did before. Then they find a source of strength in that. And the first thing I'm concerned about is the inner sense of the source of strength inside the person. And classical culture, as any, for example, scientific education and so forth, these things strengthen the person inside because they have access to more power over society and society's condition than they do otherwise. In the sense, when they say, well, I am somebody, I am something, I mean something, I'm not just a thing. I got something inside me that you need to know. I've got something inside me I need to give you. And when you can say that to your audience around you, you feel strong. You feel happy the world is more yours. You don't have to excuse yourself for what you are. You don't have to make apologies for what you are. I learned something yesterday, buddy, and it's good. And that's the kind of thing I would like to have convey to people who ask this question, exactly that. We have access, as probably with classical art and so forth, we have, and science, we have the means to enable people to make breakthroughs, even on a fairly limited beginning basis, where they can appreciate what their mind is, what it represents. And once you're sure that your mind means something, then you're empowered, and you're not easily crushed. You don't have to defend, you don't have to apologize for yourself.
And to that end, I was watching this video that you had with, I think it was, I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, Jussi Björling's grandson, your wife and yourself, the Classical Revolution. And I thought it was interesting, this guy who was your friend, Norbert Breinien.
Yeah.
He mentioned something, and it was really heartfelt with the way he presented it, that he'd been holding something in his heart for a long time, and that the only other person who understood it was you. So could you elaborate on what exactly that was?
Well, he was a real genius. He was absolutely unique. He was of Jewish origin from Austria, and when the Hitler problem became so active, he was among those who fled and went to England. And when he got to England, he finally was put in prison, a kind of prison, because he was of German pedigree, even though Jewish, a Jewish victim of Hitler. And therefore, he and his friends were stuck into a kind of British prison. Then there was a slight improvement in the circumstances, and he and his quartet became one of the greatest musical groups in all modern history. Absolutely remarkable achievement. He became, through a meeting of a friend of mine on the streets of Paris, when something I'd written on the street, and he was fascinated with that. And by that, we became close friends and remained that until his death. But he was actually a first-rate genius. His work is remarkable. If you understand the string quartet in particular, he's absolutely remarkable. And what he and the team did, the Amadeus Quartet did. So, this is part of the beauty of life. He's dead, unfortunately. He was actually younger than I was. But he was one of those geniuses and a center of radiation of genius in other ways. We had, at that point in our association, until prior to his death, we were associated with, through this group of people in Europe and elsewhere, with all the greatest musicians, or most of the greatest musicians then living in Europe and the United States. And believe me, that was a happy experience. When you find yourself with your next-door neighbor, your closest friend in your context, are all people who love what you love and part of the same thing you're part of, then it's a pretty good feeling. And one of the things that's good about artistic and other work and scientific work is a byproduct of that is you get involved, you find something in yourself which you really respect. You are participating in something which is important to you, which defines your life as meaningful. You have all these wonderful musicians, the greatest talent, musical talent that existed in the world in that time. These are all sort of my friends, all in this group, along with Norbert and so forth. What do you want anything better than that in life? And there are things like that in other forms of life, in science and so forth. These are the things that count. And these are the experiences that are precious for you when all your friends are dead. I'm getting to this age of nearly 90, and I've got a lot of, all my friends are dead cases. But I have memories of these people, memories of these old friends. And this is one of the most beautiful experiences of my life. And thus, I wish everyone would have the same experience.